Alright, looks like we're making a series of this. Though now we've done both the pea shooter and brown coat, merely looking at the characters' designs would be pointless, as most other characters fall under the category of changed a lot or changed a little design-wise. Gameplay-wise, however, there's a lot more there. It's fun to look at how they've adapted each character from game to game. And today we'll be looking at the public nuisance that is the Chomper. Like all good things, the Chomper originated in the original Plants vs Zombies. Costing 150 sun, the Chomper would eat regular zombies that got too close. This is evident through its mouth being its largest and most prominent feature. This would instantly kill the zombie, no matter how much health they had. One hit killing a zombie does come with its downsides, however, as the Chomper needs to take the time to completely consume it, leaving the door open for a zombie to return the favour. So we've got it, the Chomper formula. Well, Plants vs Zombies 2 features a near identical version of the Chomper, only now it can bite tombstones and other obstacles. I should probably add that the Chomper was released to Plants vs Zombies 2 8 months after its inclusion in Garden Warfare, so it's possible the biting was lifted from that game. This game also came with a facelift, following in the footsteps of the pea shooter and having its proportions altered. However, our main takeaway was its newly found biting ability. Makes sense from a character point of view and increases its usefulness. Instantly killing zombies was still a cornerstone of this character's identity, and when it came time to adapt this character into 3D, all the pieces were already there. Garden Warfare comes around, starring a Chomper everyone could have seen coming from a mile away. Swallowing Zombies returns from Plants vs Zombies 1, perfectly fitting for a close-range melee-focused character. The eating zombies part of its identity was completely intact, as the Chomper could one-hit any enemy zombie, and, much like its prior appearances, it would be open to attack after it had done so. The Spikeweed is a reference to the Spikeweed from Plants vs Zombies 1 and 2. I say a reference to as it does do damage to zombies that step on it, however its use case is entirely different. It's mainly used to trap enemies to make it easier for a Chomper to go in for the kill. Also, to quickly touch on the design, it looks like a perfect adaptation of the original design but in 3D. We have an incredibly similar look. The character as a whole is a perfect adaptation of the original, with all of its core abilities intact, and the newly added ones, those being Goop and Burrow, are merely adding to its already defined identity. Plants vs Zombies Heroes is our next stop. Firstly, the design. It looks like the original, only with a smaller head. It's almost completely shaken off any PvZ 2 influence. The gameplay is next, and the way it works is it instantly kills a zombie with less than 3 attack in its lane, while having 2 attack and 2 health. A perfect translation. Let's not forget old Cerberus Chomper over here, doing what the Chomper does but in 3 lanes instead of 1. We've also got Chompzilla, a playable character based on the Chomper, and if nothing else continues to highlight this particular plant's notoriety. But I get Heroes is the less important title, as it's so far removed from the other 2 series gameplay wise. It exists in this weird limbo. It's not quite either one. Whether or not it's alone in that limbo is anyone's guess. Look, I will cover this game, but currently it's impossible to play. At the very least, it's interesting to note how true to the original character this version is. Now it's time for the real discussion. Battle for Neighborville Chomper has a lot to unpack. The design is very matte, very similar to the changes the pea shooter has seen. Beyond that, there is a fair bit new. For context, the Garden Warfare Chomper, for as gimmick clad as he is just that. He can one-hit kill enemies, and Hot Rod was quite the annoyance, but that's really about it. It's all the character had going for it. The Chomper was a weak and limited class, as its options were very limited. This puts into context the changes made to the BFN Chomper. Just instead of focusing on its core traits, it had a ranged attack now. I guess the easiest thing to do with a melee class that had limited options would be to give it a ranged attack. You can now attack from a distance, an area that this character completely failed at before, but it's this that really detracts from the Chomper's core gameplay elements. Super Brains might have had a ranged attack, but in Garden Warfare 2 they heavily nerfed it, on top of doubling his kick, heavily putting an emphasis on the melee combat, and that character is more fun because of it. More on that on an SB video. The Chomper wasn't given this treatment. He went from a limited and gimmicky class to a confused mess. His melee strength has been nerfed with the removal of eating people from behind. You now have to burrow, and less emphasis has been placed on it due to the fact that you now have a ranged attack, which in itself isn't very good. It's incredibly awkward to aim. The number of situations you can use a Chomper in has for sure increased, but its usefulness in those situations is a lot lower. The Horror Chomper was the best not because he had more health, did more damage or shot enemies, but because he was the fastest and most nimble, which are things that heavily benefit a melee focused class. So instead of the slobber shot, perhaps we could have a temporary speed boost, sprint burrow standard, used exclusively for movement and getting up close, that perhaps doesn't go underground so enemies could still harm him. Just things that would enhance the melee focused combat. Lastly, Plants vs Zombies 3. The Chomper is pretty much a continuation of the Plants vs Zombies 2, just with a rather interesting design. It still chomps, bites, and chews. Thus concludes the Chomper. Throughout this character's existence, it's remained incredibly consistent. Perhaps not design-wise, but definitely gameplay-wise. Each game featuring incredibly similar elements. Even Plants vs Zombies Heroes, the weirdest spin-off of them all, the character is incredibly faithful to the original game. But that's just about it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.